Hello, Burlington. I'm Mayor Marianne Mead Ward, and welcome to Burlington Matters. Today we've got another great show for you. We're talking all things transit. The city just recently approved our capital and operating budgets, and we have some good news in there for transit users. So today on the show, I've got Doug Brown from Burlington for Accessible and Sustainable Transit, or BFAST for short, a lot easier to say. And Sue Connor, our Director of Transit, is here with me as guests on the show. So stay with us and hear all about the good news we've got for transit. Hello, Burlington. It's Mayor Marianne Mead Ward, and this is Burlington Matters. Today, we're talking transit with our Director of Transit, Sue Connor, who joins me today in studio, and Doug Brown for Burlington for Accessible and Sustainable Transit. Let's start with you, Sue. We have some recent changes that have been put into the recent operating and capital budget. Let's talk about those.
So, Council's approved in the capital budget three new growth buses to be put in service in later part of 2019. And to operate those buses, there were 6 transit operators in the operating budget, which will be formally approved at the council meeting on the 25th. In addition, for our paratransit fleet, we have 1 growth vehicle that was approved and 1 operator to help increase that service as well.
One of the questions I'm getting asked is how will that help to improve service? So you've got the new buses. Certainly Handyvan makes sense. We know there's huge demand for Handyvan. What will the new buses be deployed doing?
Well, what we're going to focus on for 2019 is to look at route rationalization and look at some of our routes that are underutilized, where we have duplication of coverage, and try to improve travel times, because that's one thing I'm hearing a lot from people. It takes too long to get anywhere by bus. So we'll be starting sort of the first leg of moving our routing system to a grid system, which does improve travel times. And we'll be looking at where people are traveling, where we're getting the most use of the vehicles, where we can improve frequencies, and then we will be promoting the service and trying to get new riders to use to at least try the service.
That sounds good. And Doug, you have been a long and passionate advocate for transit. Certainly in the 8 years I was on council before becoming mayor, you were a frequent face around council. So I'm sure you're excited about this news, and where do we go next from here?
Oh, certainly. In fact, what a total change from the last 8 years, as you mentioned, where I appeared and other people in our group appeared before council a number of times. We were always on the back foot, fighting service cuts or fare increases. So it's really good. I congratulate the council on the budget, because significant new money is coming into transit. And not just for this year, but when you look at the capital budget, it's projected over the coming 10 years. So badly needed, and we're looking forward to seeing improved service as a result.
That's right. We also have some fare strategies that were recently approved, free transit for some folks. Sue, talk to us about that and how that'll be managed on the system.
Right. So the council approved free transit service for seniors, and our senior category for fares is 65 and older. So that free service would be Monday to Friday from 9 till 2:30. Currently, we're working out the operational aspect of that, how we will manage that with people boarding the bus. We're hopeful that we'll be able to use our Presto fare card system, which will make it easier for people boarding and easier for our operators to manage capturing the ridership data that we would like to get from that. As well, council approved the split pass program that we currently have with the Region of Halton, where low-income residents can qualify for a 50% discount in their monthly pass. That program now, the city will subsidize the other 50%, so it will be seamless for the split pass participant, where they will come to our terminal to buy their pass, but instead of them having to pay for that 50%, that will, if they're in our database from the region and they qualify for the program, they will not have to pay that 50%. So I'm talking to the region, working with them, how we might get more people that qualify for that program to use the pass. And we will be meeting with the region also to promote that program more to those residents that qualify.
About how many split pass users do we have right now?
Right now, I think it's in around the 1,000 range. I'm not sure, I haven't got the numbers from the region, how many people are actually in that low-income bracket that could qualify. But once I get that information, we'll be trying to find out from the region if we can better utilize the program through their management of it.
And just to be clear, one thing I learned is that the cutoff for the program in terms of how you qualify for low income, it's the low income as defined, I think, by Stats Canada, but then there's another 15% on top of that buffer, something like that. So it actually is a little more generous than the low income cutoff.
Yeah, I'm not sure about those details, but that's why I want to meet with the region and kind of flesh some of those things out, and you know, hopefully it's going to make an opportunity and make getting more people out to work that maybe can't afford the transportation now. I think there's a lot of opportunities, even for people that don't get out a lot because they can't afford to, just, you know, to be more socially inclusive. I think it'll be good for that as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I think Council really appreciated about the Split Pass program is that it applies to anybody. So seniors, students, youth, any age if you qualify for because of low income. So it's clearly based on need. It's predetermined by Halton Region, so that administrative work is something we don't have to do. But it is very inclusive of all ages, whereas the seniors program right now is just for people 65 and over in that off-peak period where we anticipate that there's low ridership, and so this hopefully for seniors who don't have, you know, many of them retired, have the option to travel during the day. This would get more people on the bus during those low rider times of the day.
Yeah, hopefully it will.
Now, Doug, I know you have expressed different thoughts about free transit. Do we go far enough? Is that a good tool for us to be using? Are there other categories? I've certainly had requests, and I can talk about those for additional free fares. What are your thoughts on where we go from here on the fare strategies?
Well, first of all, comment on the free split pass, and it was something that we hadn't thought of. So congratulations to Council for making this initiative, because the effect is going to be immediate. You know, the service increases we're going to see accumulated over a number of years. In fact, it'll be a number of months before people start to notice anything, because it takes a while you have to purchase the buses, you have to hire the drivers and everything like that. So, but this will be pretty immediate once the system gets worked out. And what it does is it puts $48 in the pockets of our poorest citizens. And you know, if you're on, say, ODSP or Ontario Works, the money is not enough, and so $48 in the pockets of our neediest citizens, that is a tremendous result. So congratulations to Council for bringing this out. Other things to encourage ridership. I know the off hour for seniors should help. It's a different approach than Oakville. Oakville's experience was quite positive in terms of attracting further riders. So, but I think with the current council's pro-transit position, there's an opportunity to maybe do some other initiatives, and we'd be glad to explore those with the city as the time comes.
Well, you've always been a good partner with us, an advocate, Doug. You mentioned the Oakville experience, and their data showed they have free Mondays, so it's just one day a week, but it's all day, whatever time. And it showed two things. One, that Mondays became wildly popular to ride, but also that it increased transit on other days. And that, I think, is a function of the fact that once people get used to riding the bus and and you take out that barrier, which a fare is a barrier. Do I have enough money, and I just want one ticket, and do I get change? And a single ride, if you're not set up for Presto or buy a book of tickets, is very expensive. It's what, $350 now for a single ride? That's a lot of money to go one way. And now, if you can get all your business done in 90 minutes, we have the 90-minute transfer program still, right? So you can get on and off the bus multiple times within a 90-minute window, but outside of that, you'd be paying another fare. So this will help certainly to eliminate some of the concerns that people would have before they take the bus and that barrier. But that was the experience in Oakville, is that it did increase ridership because people got more used to it. With the service improvements that you're planning, now we have a system-wide improvement that will hopefully get people to where they need to go quicker. So give us a timeline on when all of that, as Doug mentioned, that'll be over a period of time, I'm sure, but when do we think some of those immediate route changes will take effect?
Well, we're working towards September of this year. We're planning on moving to the south side of the Burlington GO station. So we will really be focusing around the routes coming into the Burlington GO, because it'll give us an opportunity to move those routes and possibly move some routes that don't need to travel into the GO station on more of a straight path to connect at different locations. So that's kind of what we've got in the short-term plans. Beyond that, as we look at future years, depending on what gets approved in budget, because I recognize although it's in the capital forecast, we still have to go through that every year, that process. So, but we will be looking towards, what can we do next? We'll be gathering feedback from the public. We actually have one session starting tonight. So in March we have 3 sessions focusing on our 5-year business plan that we're working on. So sort of what we do to prepare in the short term for what might come out of the final growth of the city that will be worked through the integrated mobility plan. And we also have some September 2019 changes that we're proposing to the public, and we're going to do sessions in April to get feedback on what our customers think about some of the proposed changes. We'll also be doing sessions with our employees, because our operators are out front line and they often see things that we don't hear through complaints or through outreach to the public. And I think that once we get the changes designed, then the next step will be doing some marketing, some really grassroots communications to people. I'm very big on having people on the platform a couple weeks before you make the changes, and then having people there to support our customers through the first initial weeks of the changes. So that's all great. I think just back to the free transit for seniors, one thing that we should mention is that it is a pilot program at this point. Mm-hmm. It's an 18-month, so we will be reporting back to council after 12 months, so before the 2020 budget. So really encourage people to get out and make use of it. We'll also be doing quite a bit of travel training when we see opportunities. So we'll be focusing on areas where we'll see a lot of seniors, like the senior center, et cetera, where we'll have a bus and we'll let people get on a bus and understand comfortably, how to board, how to pay their fare, how to read our route map information, and how to phone in and get information. So we'll be doing a lot of work to encourage it, but we still need people to come out and try.
Absolutely. So the split pass is permanent unless a future council changes. That is not a pilot project, right. But the seniors fare strategy, as you mentioned, is a pilot. So we need people to participate in it, and we'll be tracking the data, of course, on that. So let's talk about some of the sessions that people can participate in. I know Doug's got one coming up as well. So let's go to you first and talk about the public forum that you host every year. I forget what year this is now.
This will be the 5th Transit User Forum. So began 4 years ago, and it's a forum primarily for bus users, and it's always been a Saturday morning near the end of winter or early spring, and we've had such good attendance and good feedback from the actual riders. And last year's forum, again, we had a very, very full house, and we had good representation from Burlington Transit. The last few years, Burlington Transit's become our partner in the forum, and we very much appreciate their involvement in this. Now it's been a very positive experience for everybody. Last year we had a lot of the drivers at the forum, and actually the bus users in Burlington love our drivers. That's one thing. Even with the system suffering from lack of funding and lack of service, people appreciate the work that our drivers do. But now I'm hoping with the planned increases in service level, we're going to go far beyond that. People are going to be very pleased with the level of service that will come. It's not here yet, but we've got to give it a few years as we get buses and drivers and everything on the system. So the date is easy to remember if you're a Star Wars fan. May the 4th be with you. It's May 4th.
That's awesome. No one's going to forget that.
May 4th at the Burlington Senior Center. The doors open at 9:30 and the event starts at 10 and usually ends around 12:30, and everybody has their say, and we have information, and you can talk about transit with the Director of Transportation. Sue's going to be there along with her staff, so mark it on your calendar if you are interested in transit. May 4th at the Burlington Senior Center, 9:30 a.m.
And you get coffee and croissants, I think, usually.
Oh, more than croissants. We have a buffet, a breakfast buffet always. So if you come early, and you can have a pretty good breakfast there as well to get your day started.
So the breakfast starts at 9:30, and then the program starts at 10. That's how it works. Okay, great. And I think I've been to most of them recently. I was certainly there last year.
Virtually all of them, I think.
I have, yeah. And the more recent ones have been standing room only, so this will give you a little bit more space, I think, at the Senior Center.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, Sue, about some public sessions. Let's talk about the dates of those and how people can participate in that.
So they are on the city's website, on the Burlington Transit page, but for the 5-year business plan, looking at growth in transit for the next 5 years. We've got actually the first session today at 3 to 6 p.m. at City Hall. And then we have one on the 20th from 11 to 2 at the Central Arena. And the one on March 21st is from 6 to 9 at Tansley Woods. And for the proposed changes for 2019, we will have those at the BFAST Forum, but we also have sessions on April 8th from 11 to 2 at Central Arena, April 9th from 3 to 6 at City Hall, and April 11th from 6 to 9 at Tansley Woods.
So lots of opportunities. Now the one that you mentioned that's tonight, folks actually won't be able to attend that one because this will air after today. Right. But the other one, but that's okay. The other ones, there's quite a list there. And
we have posters up and we have information on our web. So, and I've been, anybody I've been getting comments from, because I often do get emails on that, we let people know about the dates so that they can attend. So I'm expecting to have pretty good turnout at these events, and hopefully get a lot of input. But people can also give feedback online, and that's opportunity as well that we look at. And
so would they go to the getinvolved.ca page on the City of Burlington's website?
That's where it's set up.
Okay, and so just for folks at home, they would have to, if they're not already, just register, give their postal code so that we can kind of keep track of if there's differences in the opinions by different regions. We know about that.
Right.
And so then they can take that. So that survey is live now on the city website, or will be shortly?
It will be shortly, I believe, yeah.
All right, so lots of opportunities for folks to talk to us about transit. So in terms of the changes coming up, we have the fare strategy that is starting June 1st of this year. We have the route changes that are starting, some of them in September, so folks should watch for that. And I think your forum coming up can help to flag both those items, which will be great. It'll be an opportunity to get out in front of those changes for folks. And then let's talk about about the next 10 years. Let's talk about where this is going. And one of the things that the city did put money towards this in this budget was an integrated transportation plan. So that includes vehicular, active transportation, as well as transit. So that's one piece. But there's also some specific transit things coming up in the next couple of years. So let's talk about those.
Yeah, so we're currently working on a 5-year business plan, and that plan will help us decide, what service levels we should be looking at over the next 5 years. We did some work internally to kind of say out to 2031, and looking at a mode share of around 10%, what we would need in terms of a fleet. So that work, we did some work internally. We're going to have our consultant validate that. It's, we'll lay out for council, I think, a good feeling about approving budget in the future, saying, here's what we need to see some incremental growth every year. We also are looking through that business plan as how we might service some of the low peak times, some of the times where we don't see the ridership, or in some areas where there's low density. So some kind of an on-demand service to get people to the hubs where we're running a grid system with a better frequency. So we're looking at where are the high ridership corridors. Let's put our money to operate those with our large vehicle fleet, and let's find a different way to move people. Even on the weekends, we have some very low performing areas where we just don't see the ridership. We don't have a lot of service, so it's very hard for people to use this service. So looking at creative ways that we might find a made in Burlington solution, because every municipality is different. There's a lot of different models of that type of thing, especially in the US now. But I'm glad to say that our consultant that we're using has had a lot of experience with those kind of services. So I think they are, I've told them we're not set on any type of service. Give us what you feel will be good model that we can bring to council. And I think that that work is going to be wrapped up. We're hoping to have an interim report for council before budget approval next year, and then the final report will be done in the fall of 2020 to bring to council. But I know when I was working in Brampton, I did a similar plan, and when we brought the first plan to council, they really liked it because it really laid out a roadmap for them, especially with budget approval. There was documentation and support for what they were being asked to approve in the budget, which I think gave them a good comfort level.
Well, and what you're talking about, we've heard, that you can either have high frequency transit, or you have, or you have low ridership coverage, right? That dichotomy, which I've never completely accepted. I think you service those in different ways, and that's what you're talking about. So our high frequency might be the big conventional buses running every 15 minutes or less. In the low rider areas, different municipalities have experimented with taxi cab service, with Dial-A-Ride, which we used to have here in Burlington. Oakville has an on-demand bus pickup to plug you into the grid. So I think there's lots of options, and I look forward to that discussion, because I do think we still need to provide service in some of those low rider areas, but a fixed route that might be empty for a good deal of the time is probably not the best use of our resources. So,
well, when you look at a lot of our funding is ridership's important for that.
That's
so
right.
Let's put the buses where we're going to get the most ridership,
right.
And then let's bring those people in to those routes from the areas where we don't see high ridership, the low density areas, and then they become a rider as well. So it's a win-win, and it's also costing us a lot less than operating a 40-foot bus when we're not picking up a lot of people.
Well, and you mentioned the connection between ridership and funding. Our provincial gas tax is based on ridership. So if we get more folks riding the bus because of the free fares or because of improved frequency, we get more money back. So it helps to offset the initial cost of some of those things. We just got a couple of minutes left, Doug, and I want to come back to you and give us a sentence or two. 5 years from now, what else would we be doing that would make you go, that's exactly what we need to be in 5 years? What's your vision?
Well, 5 years, I like that we've adopted a plan, because the way forward is always based on a plan, and it gives some consistency, and that council's not going to suddenly curtail everything partway through. So 5 years down, what I would like, I think a first sub-objective should be to meet our own service standards. So, the good progress that has been made in the last couple of years, well, there was kind of an epiphany. Thanks to Sue and her staff, their good research, I mean, the system had run down to such a poor level that we weren't complying with provincial labor legislation and safety. So, money was approved to at least bring us up to safety and labor standards. But I think the next objective, which I hope we can reach, in a few years, as the resources keep coming in, is to meet our very own service standards. With maximum walking distance to bus stops for the majority of the population. Reasonable frequencies. Nobody should be waiting an hour for a local bus, and that sort of thing. So that's where I'd like to see us, say, halfway through the process, to be meeting our own standards as well as the provincial standards.
Well, we'll check in, I'm sure frequently, but certainly before next year, and see how we've done a year from now at the Transit Forum, which I'm sure you will have again. In our last couple of minutes, I always like to leave on a more personal note, so I'll come to you, Sue. Give us a recent book or movie that you watched or really love, or your favorite, if you have a favorite.
Not so much a favorite. I actually picked up, because I still follow what happened with my old employer in Brampton. So I actually was curious, and I picked up Patrick Brown's book. And I thought, I had it since last November, and I hadn't picked it up, but on Family Day, I was up at my cottage, and I picked it up, and I started reading it, and all of a sudden I couldn't put it down. So
that's great. So a little political intrigue there. What about you, Doug?
Don't do a lot of fiction reading, so the current book I'm reading, which is a tremendously interesting read, but kind of tragic. It's a book on the Lac-Mégantic rail disaster, which is a long story, actually, of the final outcomes of deregulation of the railway business and hauling dangerous cargoes and so on.
Well, we're all nonfiction folks, it seems. I'm watching the Ken Burns documentary on Vietnam. It's 17 parts, so we watched the first part last night, and very very compelling. A lot of things I didn't know about that conflict. So 16 more hours to go on that one. Anyways, thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much to Sue and to Doug, my guests on the show, talking all things transit. If you have any questions, please get in touch at mayor@burlington.ca, and make sure that you fill out the survey or join one of our many open forums where you can share your thoughts on transit and how we can do it better.